They're trying to criminalize people that are saying free Palestine or are speaking about Gaza. And this only underscores how little you value Palestinian life, that it takes 2 Israeli citizens being killed for you to have this reaction when you're basically punishing us and calling for us to be canceled and banned and all of these things for having a human response to tens of thousands of innocent women and children being slaughtered in a territory next to Israel.
I am a revert and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
then sponsor 10 people for just £100.
remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said,
Charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. Candace Owens once again vocalised what we're all thinking about the Israeli government, Zionist political entities and their associates in the Western media by calling them out for attempting to outlaw the phrase Free Palestine by associating it with extremism. This is after 2 Israeli embassy staff members were fatally shot in Washington DC by a non-Muslim American perpetrator who yelled Free Palestine as he was apprehended. This incident has been described both as a false flag operation and as the actions of a disturbed, radicalised individual taking the law into his own hands. Regardless of the motive, we must never condone or endorse violence against others in the name of the Palestinian cause, except in a legitimate self-defence scenario. We also must not allow the actions of one unhinged individual to be used as a justification to label everyone who supports Palestinian freedom as extremists, despite the efforts of Netanyahu and his minions to draw that false connection. By that logic, any expression of support for Israel should also be banned, given that they're responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands more people. Once again, it's very convenient that when Israel is losing the PR war so badly, they call for people speaking against the genocide they're committing to be silenced. Candace especially took exception to not only herself being targeted in this way, but also Joe Rogan, Theo Von, Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll, Dave Smith, and even kids TV personality Miss Rachel, amongst others. Let's take a look.
Obviously, last night, terrible tragedy happens. You get 2 Israeli diplomats who are gunned down in DC. This individual then screams Free Palestine. And of course, now the internet is accusing everybody who has ever said the right thing about what is happening in Gaza of having blood on our hands because we have been humane towards that.
And conflating it with anti-Semitism too. It's just like, maybe he was anti-Semitic. Maybe he killed them just because they were Jewish. But all the evidence that I'm seeing is that it was political. And conflating the fact that they were Jewish with the fact that he was saying Free Palestine and you're Israeli having to do with the Israeli government, those are not the same thing.
It's crazy. And it's also extremely desperate to me. I think that there's no other way to look at everything that's transpired than to acknowledge the Zionists have lost the moral argument. They've lost the moral high ground if they ever had it. Too many Americans are awakened to this, especially the youth are awakened to these sorts of tactics. And they just did too much too fast, trying to cancel too many people, trying to call everybody literally Hitler. Eventually people go, okay, everyone can't be Adolf Hitler that disagrees with you. And people have survived these cancellations. Tucker Carlson, myself, now they're using the strategy of saying we're all funded by Qatar, and it just looks messy and inauthentic, and their platforms are dying. They're sending out bots to try to pretend that they're popular. They've gone after Joe Rogan, right? Yep. They have gone after Dave Smith. Big time, right? Yep. They are going after now Theo Von. They've gone after Tim Dillon. And I can empathize with him because I felt that pressure last year where I kind of went, I have a massive platform. There are people who can't say anything. I am watching before they somehow cleaned up X every day. I was just watching these kids being blown up. I was watching people starving. And I remember distinctly what it was that made me feel like I had to say something. And it was the sound of a mother screaming after her daughter was killed. And I remember her holding the lifeless body and the rubble. And I had to say something. And it cost me, actually, in retrospect, literally nothing.
Yeah, but at the time,
it felt like it cost me everything.
Right.
And I realized it cost me nothing because when you do the right thing, when you open yourself up to God and recognize that all of these things that you think matter are nothing. Like there is an eternal source that is going to take care of you when you say the right thing. That is what I felt. And I wanted to cry, especially he's so genuine. He's like, but I'm a guy who has a platform and I can't look at these images anymore. We all just watched Theo Von's clip and felt that he was struggling with this internally. And what we get in response is, by the way, he's mentally ill. Okay, add it to the pile. Candace is a cluster B psychopath?
Yes.
And Theo Von's mentally ill, and Joe Rogan needs an intervention per Sam Harris. But these guys have got it all figured out. It's just ad hominem attacks.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so dishonest in the way that they try to interpret it. And do you think the response to that now, knowing what we know about expressing that and how they try to ruin your life. We could talk about even Miss Rachel, who they demanded I'm explicitly speaking about these pro-Zionist groups, demanded that the DOJ investigate her for taking money from Qatar.
So like Candace and Ian said, the actions of this one deranged individual have nothing to do with the vast majority of people speaking up against the atrocities Israel are carrying out in Gaza. Candace correctly stated that the Zionists have lost their decades-old artificially constructed moral high ground due to how their malicious conduct, unethical actions and dishonest propaganda have been exposed on the world stage. And as she said, resorting to accusing anyone with a large platform that is speaking up for Palestine as being funded by Qatar or as being mentally ill or as having psychopathic tendencies or even just calling for them to be outright censored is nothing more than just lazy and desperate tactics. The Zionists clearly underestimated the information and technology era that we now live in, where the majority of their war crimes have been broadcasted all over social media, despite the billions of American dollars they spend on covering them up or reframing them as heroics. And this is the exact reason why so many prominent alternative media personalities are criticising what Israel is doing. Like Candace said, how can anyone with a conscience or even a shred of morality not empathise with parents who have tragically lost their children or kids that have been unjustly orphaned due to Israel's aggression in Gaza? Let's watch the next clip.
The new opinion is that if you have a problem seeing a child blown up, if you have a problem with children starving because Israel is not allowing aid to get into that territory, if you have a problem
77 days without
if you have
aid.
a problem with the images of a woman wailing as she's holding her child, if you have a problem with tens of thousands of murdered innocents, and by the way, the last time that we had the number check, because they don't tell you anymore, it's got to be, we've got to be close to six figures now, in my opinion, okay, because that's how long ago it was at, like 50,000. But if you have a problem with any of that, the amount of death, the destruction that's happening, you're being funded by Qatar.
Yeah.
They're even handing out names. They're calling him Tucker Carlson. And so I want to be, if this is what we do, we all get Qatar names for having basic, human response to tragedy. I want to be Candace.
Candace Owens.
I want to be Candace, and you are Ian Qatar.
I'll be Ian Qatar, yeah, for sure. I already am, really, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is their argument. You're funded by Qatar. Dave Smith, same thing. You're funded by Qatar. No evidence, just lies. And it's like, if you want people to come over to your side, you have to stop being a liar.
It's always, you are wrong. You are mentally ill. It's never, what is Israelis' actions? What is Israel doing that might cause someone to criticize them? And it's the same thing that I'm talking about with that shooter. Again, it's like, horrible tragedy. But is he anti-Semitic? Or if Israel wasn't bombing children every single day, and that whole conflict wasn't happening this way right now, do you think he still would have done that because he hates Jews? Or is it because of what we're seeing on the TV that he got radicalized?
People are having a reaction. Never justifies violence. What happened is a tragedy. You should never think that your solution to that should be, well, I'm going to go take other innocent life because I'm upset about what's happening. That's just wrong. But to pretend that people that are having a normal human response to what's happening, or try to now censor speech, and they're trying to criminalize people that are saying free Palestine or are speaking about Gaza, now you all have blood on your hands? No. Even Netanyahu has blood on your hands. And this only underscores how little you value Palestinian life, that it takes 2 Israeli citizens being killed for you to have this reaction when you're basically punishing us and calling for us to be canceled and banned and all of these things for having a human response to tens of thousands of innocent women and children being slaughtered in a territory next to Israel. When Wikipedia first got started, speaking about how they had employed this whole team to write, and they also had the same thing for X. They have all these IDF soldiers that are writing responses and controlling body counts.
If you want to learn how propaganda works, how the Hasbara works, how the mind control works, all you need to do is study the Israel-Palestine conflict. Yeah. Because Israel has been waging a information war on the American people all along, and they still do today. And every day you can log in and watch their tactics. That's the only weapon they have when this is the reality of how many kids are being killed on this side versus the other side.
Candace was absolutely right when she said people don't need a monetary incentive from Qatar to use their platforms to express disagreement towards Israel killing and starving innocent civilians and children. She was also right when she said that the death toll in Palestine must be in the hundreds of thousands by now, especially considering that a year ago the reported numbers were around 50,000 and have since stopped being reported. Furthermore, some Israeli media outlets are even reporting that over 200,000 Gazans have died due to Israeli land and air attacks, starvation caused by Israel blocking aid coming in, and untreated diseases resulting from Israel destroying the majority of hospitals in Gaza. And as Ian said, this is why the Zionist propaganda machine is completely obsessed with demonising anyone who speaks out against their war crimes, because they have no intention of stopping the evil they continue to perpetrate. Both Candace and Ian are consistent in condemning the loss of civilian life, whether that be the 2 Israelis in DC or the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza. But we never see this kind of balanced perspective from the other side, who deliberately cover up and even celebrate the killing of civilians, using the same old tired human shields narrative as an excuse for Israel's actions. Candace was spot on in highlighting the hypocrisy of the selective outrage over the deaths of 2 Israelis, revealing the stark contrast in how little value is placed on Palestinian lives, by giving the example of how Netanyahu and his supporters are exploiting this isolated incident to brand the phrase Free Palestine as an extremist slogan, while at the same time trying to permanently cancel anyone with a significant platform expressing similar outrage over the deaths of tens of thousands of Palestinians. Once again, both Ian and Candace nailed it when exposing the well-funded online Israeli misinformation peddlers. So next time you find yourself arguing with an anonymous bot in the comment section, chances are it's just another clown from the IDF. This is what we're up against, a ruthless genocidal military campaign backed by a corrupt and relentless propaganda machine. Hence why I firmly stand with anyone with the courage and moral conviction to amplify the voices of the Palestinian people in their fight for survival, justice and freedom. If there's one thing this horrific genocide has made painfully clear, is who truly stands on the side of good and who chooses to side with evil. I can only pray that all the voices speaking out and all the pain being witnessed will not be in vain and will somehow make a difference. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, and remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Jazakallah khair.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah